Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a comparison of two countries. We're going to compare Thailand and Albania. Now you may be saying, why these two countries? Because there's a lot of similarities as far as the cost of living goes. And these two countries could not be any more opposite of each other. Now let's say you're somebody looking to retire or move to Thailand. Thailand's great. However, there may be a reason you need to leave Thailand for a short period of time and you're looking for an alternate country to go to that has the same cost of living, things that you're used to in Thailand, that you don't want to go to some expensive country. Well, and you want a change of scenery, I would say consider Albania. So we're going to do a detailed comparison of the two. The first one I want to talk about is foods. What's the difference in foods? So if you've been in Asia for a while, you're going to know that rice and noodles are a staple. Here in Asia, just about everything has rice and noodles, and it's great. The food here in Thailand is fantastic, second to none. I will say, after living here almost 4 years, that you do get sick of it and you can eat other types of food, but the food is really good here in Asia. However, when you go to Albania, it's almost difficult to get some of those same dishes. I didn't see any Asian restaurants. They have noodles. There were some dishes we had that had a little bit of rice, but their main staple over there is going to be more meats and cheeses and things like that that are just totally different from your day-to-day diet that you would get in Asia. And I gotta say, yeah, the food's great in Thailand. Everyone knows that that's researched Thailand or has been here, but the food is fantastic in Albania as well. Next on the list, we're talking about visas. Now, visas here in Thailand can be a little bit tricky for some not tricky at all. In Albania, things are a little bit easier, and I'm only going to speak as an American because I went there as an American. I believe it's the same for Europe, but please do your own due diligence on this. For Americans, we arrived at the airport. I had my passport and I went up to the immigration part that said for US citizens or whatever it was. And all I had to do was hold my passport up to the machine. It scanned it, done. That was it. Didn't even have to talk to anybody. How long was that good for? A year. I could stay in the country a year. Just arrive unannounced, no visa. You go there, boop, and you're good for a year. And I believe we did talk to an attorney about this. They said that you are good for a year. And I said, well, what happens after that year? You go across the border and come back. I'm like, well, how long do you have to stay across the border? He goes, 1 minute. You come back in and you can actually repeat that cycle. And you can become a citizen in Albania if you obviously do the paperwork to become a citizen. It takes like 5 years. Where in Thailand, things like that are either non-existent or very rare. Now let's talk about weather. Weather in Thailand is hot, hotter, even hotter, and the hottest. So pretty much you're hot all year long. Where in Albania, you do have 4 seasons. Now, in the United States, we are from South Carolina. And when we researched what the weather is like every month of the year in Albania, it was almost perfectly in line with where we were from, South Carolina. So it really depends on what part of Albania you're in. The further north you go, it's higher elevation. You're in the mountains, you're going to see snow. If you're in a place like Vlorë, which is right on the ocean, from what I was told, the high or the lowest it's going to get is maybe 30 degrees. And in the summer, it can get really hot. Like, I think this last year they got up to 110 degrees. So there's a lot of variations here. You're going to get fall, winter, spring, summer. You're going to get them all, which is a big change from Thailand. Driving. Now, in Thailand, you drive on the left-hand side of the road and you are on the right side of the car. In Albania, it's like the United States. You drive on the right side of the road, on the left side of the car, just like the US. The driving, let's compare how they drive in each country. It's crazy. I've always talked about this in Thailand driving. People drive the wrong way, ignore the laws. It's just like the Wild West of driving, okay? The parking, It depends where you're at. It can be really good. It can be really awful, again, depending on where you're at. In Albania, the driving seemed a little bit easier. Now, I know for some of you who are only familiar with Albania and have complained about the driving are probably saying, you're crazy, it's horrible there. We're comparing between Albania and Thailand. So Albania is a little less crazy driving, believe it or not, for some of you. But what I will say is worse in Albania is parking by far. It's just not designed for parking, and I found out why. It was a communist country from the 1940s to the early 90s. Most people did not have cars. Since it was either 91 or 92 when communism was no more, everyone started getting cars and everyone started buying them. And now the infrastructure just was not set up for it. So there's just not an infrastructure set up for the amount of cars that they have in Albania. So those are the two biggest things I see about driving in those countries. Now, on a lighter note, let's talk about people crosswalks. You're crossing the road. In Thailand, you cross the road, you're taking your life into your hands. People don't want to stop. They will run you over, in the news all the time. Crazy thing about Albania, and this is how nice the people are, you can walk up to a crosswalk and let's say you just want to check your phone before you cross the street. They're stopping. They stop if you are remotely close to the crosswalk. Night and day from Thailand. I know that's a minor thing, but if you are in Albania, check that out. Now, obviously, still keep your eye on the traffic, but what you're going to find is people crossing the road. They're so used to it, the Albanians, they're not even looking to see if the cars stop. So it's pretty impressive. Let's talk about cleaning your butt. So in Thailand, they have the butt gun, which is pretty much the spray nozzle to spray yourself clean. In Albania, they have the bidet, which I was excited to try the bidet since I like the butt gun so much. However, I found out a lot of the Airbnbs that we stayed at didn't even have one, but that is a thing. So if you're looking at the difference of hygiene in the bathroom, you're going to find one of two things in Albania. They're either going to have a bidet or they won't, and of course have toilet paper. But in Thailand, you do have the infamous butt gun in most places. Some of the toilets in Albania in the public places did not have a toilet seat on them. So if you know why this is, please leave it down in the comments. Try to keep it clean. I have no idea what, I tried to search this on the internet. I have no idea why there's no toilet seats on a lot of toilets in Albania. Next, we're going to talk about double parking. They double park here in Thailand. It's not as prevalent as what I saw in Albania. So both of them have double parking. What do I mean by double parking? You pull into a designated parking space and someone has the audacity to park their car sideways behind your car, and there is no way you're getting out. Next, we're going to talk about smoking, the smoking culture. So if you're a person who doesn't like cigarette smoke, let's compare the two countries. In Thailand, smoking, I mean, they do smoke. It's just not that prevalent. You're not going to see it everywhere. Most of the time you see it, it's people visiting Thailand from a Western country or somewhere else, let's just say. However, in Albania, everybody seems to smoke. Obviously not everybody, but it seems that way. I don't think there was one time walking in public areas that I did not smell cigarette smoke in the air. Just want to warn you about that. It does happen. Do they smoke inside? Yes. Do they smoke outside? Well, of course they do. Now, the big one you guys want to hear about is the cost of living. So, I would say the cost of living between both countries are going to be about dead even. If you twisted my arm and said, no, which one is the absolute cheapest? I would have to just by a little percentage go with Albania being a little bit cheaper, believe it or not. And that's going to also depend on where you live in Thailand. I live all the way up in Chiang Mai, which is one of the cheapest areas in Thailand, and I'm comparing it to those numbers. So if you live down south like Bangkok or something like that where the prices are a little bit higher, Albania is definitely going to win, but not by much. So the reason it works out, you're going to spend a little bit more on food in Albania, but for the most part, condos, your housing is going to be a little bit less, which, if you get less in housing expenses, your total expenses go down pretty pretty significantly. So the cost of living, let's just say for argument's sake, is dead even. So either one of these places, if you're on a budget and you really need to pick another country that matches your lifestyle from one of these two countries, either one of these is going to be a great alternative. What about pharmacies? For all of you needing prescription drugs, in Thailand, there's a lot, if almost most drugs you don't need a prescription for. You can just go into one of the pharmacies and get what you need. It seems to be the same way in Albania, because I went in looking for some of the things that I needed and I got it with no problems. However, if you are somebody who is more knowledgeable, which wouldn't take much, than me on Albania, please let us know down in the description what the deal is with prescriptions. It just seems like it's still easy to get over there. At least that's what I have observed. Next, we're going to talk about safety. How safe is it? A lot of people ask me to find out how safe Albania is. Start with Thailand. Thailand's so safe. I've left my key in the ignition for a long time. Nobody takes anything. I leave my stuff on top of the motorcycle and go do stuff in the city. Nobody takes anything. If anyone's going to steal anything, it's probably going to be some foreigner visiting Thailand who ran out of money. The Thais are very honest people. So what about Albania? Albania's got some of the nicest people I've ever met. I have not heard about, nor did we witness anything crime, or did we ever feel unsafe for even a split second. Everything seems safe, and from the expats that we talk to that have lived there for 10 years, they have no problems in Albania. So I'm going to say they're a dead even for safeness. Now, that's for personal safety. Let's talk about general theft a little bit. Again, don't see that. Is there going to be theft in both countries? Absolutely. This is a blanket statement. For the most part, no. However, I will say this. Somebody rides a bicycle in Thailand and they're in the city and they stop the bike, they lean it up against a pole, go do what they need to do and come back. I did notice and observe that in Albania, if somebody rides a bike and they stop and they're going to go do something, they lock up their bike, they lock up their e-scooter, they lock up all their stuff. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's just a cultural thing, or maybe there's something I'm missing. And I hate to keep saying this, but if you are very knowledgeable about Albania and you know the answer to this, please leave it down in the description. Next is language difficulty. So in Thailand, in the touristy areas, as you know, if you've been to Thailand before, you can get by with English. It isn't going to be that much of a deal. If you get anywhere on the outskirts or places that aren't used to tourists, you're going to run into trouble, but you know, you're still going to get by. Use Google Translate as a last resort, or Motion, you'll get by. Same in Albania. Albania has their language. It's one of the oldest languages in the world, Albanian. And to me, it makes a little bit more sense because their alphabet is more like English versus Thai, which has their own script. So if you know any other language like Italian, French, any Spanish, you can kind of figure out some of the words on signs and things sometimes. So the language in Albania, like I said, is Albanian, and it's the same thing. You go into touristy parts, they're going to be able to speak English, and if they don't speak English, you're still going to do just fine. The people are very patient, very kind. You will enjoy the people in Albania. What about friendliness factor? Thailand's known as the land of smiles. I'm going to say Albania is not the land of smiles, but hold on. So Thailand, people smile and they're very friendly. However, in Albania, I noticed at first when you meet somebody, they don't necessarily are all smiles. You know, they're not like this. They got a serious look. How can I help you? What do you need? However, once you try, let's say, to develop a friendly conversation with them, they're all smiles. So it's just a little bit different where Thais like smile from the get-go. You're not going to have that in Albania, but they're just as friendly. Now, this is one that I really like. The ability to work and start a business. Okay, let's compare these two. In Thailand, very, 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 very difficult for a foreigner to come there and start a business unless it's going to be owned 51% by a Thai person, or there's a marriage involved where the wife owns 51%. There's other instances, I'm not even going into legalities. Let's just say it's extremely hard to own a business in Thailand and to get a work permit, because the jobs that Thailand will allow work permits for is very minute. Switching over to Albania, they want foreigners to come there and start a business. They want foreigners to come there and get a job. So big difference between the two countries in this category. So if you're someone looking at one of these two countries and you do want to make a living, start a business, you might want to look at Albania first. Take it from me, who lives in Thailand. It's very difficult. I've dealt with a lot of expats that have tried and failed and left. What about internet and phone for the two places? Okay, Thailand is very good with internet speeds and their phone speeds. They got 5G. In Albania, they do have great internet speeds. They do have great phone speeds, but it's only 4G. But I am going to say the speed, if speed's your main concern, Thailand's a little bit more advanced and Albania is a little bit further behind. They're going to get 5G on phones in 2025. At least that's when they think they're going to have it. And I'm sure the internet speeds will continue to get faster and faster. And it does depend on in Albania where you live. So if you were to move in an old condo, you're probably going to have slower service for whatever reason. This is what other expats have said. And if you go to a newer condo, it will be geared towards faster internet speeds. So it really depends on where you live. So I hope this comparison helped you. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you feel so inclined, buy us a coffee. Man, would we really appreciate it. There's a link down in the description. And please subscribe. We'd love to have you in the Narrowgate family. So that's all I have for you right now. So I'm going to say thank you in Thai and in Albania in this one. So in Thai, we say Kap Kun Kap. And in Albanian, it is Falamanderit.